Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his spouse had been observed press convention this afternoon. Officials found out the cause of death as well as clearer timelines that led up to their final day. Gene Hackman's demise has remained one of Hollywood's maximum chilling mysteries until now. New proof has emerged revealing shocking information that nobody saw coming. What surely came about in the back of the scenes turned into it an accident, or is there something more sinister at play? Live with us as we find the reality piece by using peace and divulge the secrets and techniques which have been buried for years. You might not consider what we've discovered a sad discovery. The information that sent surprise waves through Hollywood came within the form of easy announcement from a New Mexico sheriff, Gene Hackman, his spouse, and considered one of their puppies have been lifeless. Authorities showed that they were deceased for numerous days. However, information about the reason of their deaths were initially scarce. It wasn't till the FBI started its investigation that the portions began to fall into place. The circumstances surrounding their deaths appeared oddly timed just days after the invention of their "our bodies" questions started out to mount. Changed into there a connection among Hackman's mysterious death and the FBI's unannounced raid, changed into the actor's retirement truly as nonviolent because it regarded, or had he exposed something that had sealed his destiny? All of it started out with an surprising and unannounced operation inside the lifeless of night. FBI retailers quietly descended upon Hackman's esper-crawling mansion in Santa Fe, New Mexico. There have been no sirens, no flashing lighting fixtures, just a calculated and silent intrusion into the lifestyles of a 94-year antique man who had long, considering that retired from the public eye. To people who had recognized Hackman, this operation regarded improbable. Why might the FBI target the home of a frail retired actor? Why? Now, however, as info began to emerge, the operation proved to be a long way greater complicated than everybody ought to have expected. Rumors circulated that law enforcement had been watching Hackman's property for months, if now not years. A few reports recommended that authorities, corporations had intercepted a typical transmission emanating from the assets, while others claimed that Hackman himself had attempted to attain out to officers. Most effective, to be honest. Regardless of the reason, the FBI had their sights set on some thing in Hackman's mansion. But what was it? What ought to Hackman, the man once known for his memorable roles in The French Connection and Unforgiven, had been concerned with, that attracted the eye of the authorities as soon as, in the mansion, FBI agents started out their search, rifling through Hackman's non-public belongings, film memorabilia, scripts, and awards. But it wasn't the actor's legacy they have been after as agents searched. They made a chilling discovery that would turn the investigation the other way up. At the back of considered one of the rooms of the estate, hidden in the back of a bookshelf, lay a mystery doorway that had been sealed shut. Iron locks bolstered the doorway, suggesting that something become inner had been deliberately hidden away. The sellers forced their way through the door, but what they observed inside left them greatly surprised. The room turned into darkish cold and eerily untouched. A thick layer of dust settled on the entirety, indicating that it had been sealed for a long term. In the center of the room sat an antique wooden desk protected in stacks of documents. The partitions have been coated with pics of human beings, nobody identified, a number of whom regarded to have vanished decades ago. As marketers carefully sifted via the papers and photographs, the burden of their discovery started to sink in therein. The A-Ways nook of the room turned into a metallic submitting cabinet padlocked shut with outstanding care. The FBI marketers cut open the lock's interior. They discovered exclusive files, a number of which appeared to be authorities' records from the 1970s and 80s. The documents have been marked as categorized, and their contents had been annoying. However, possibly the maximum stunning discover changed into a collection of handwritten letters penned by using Hackman himself. Those letters contained cryptic messages, a few of which hinted at a mystery Hackman had been trying to show for years. Amongst the letters one stood out, a "Be aware" written in Hackman's exclusive handwriting. It became filled with phrases like "they are constantly listening" and "the tunnels join further than I notion." Those unsettling messages, alongside a series of peculiar dates and coordinates, cautioned that Hackman had been concerned in something far greater risky than all of us should ought to have imagined. But what became it? What become Hackman investigating that required such secrecy? The coordinates LED dealers to places beyond New Mexico, probably pointing to websites that Hackman had visited or deliberate to go to, and why did the actor feel the want to? Record those findings in this sort of cryptic way, the mysterious record, as the dealers continued to seek the submitting cupboard they made, an even more alarming discovery at the very backside of the cabinet buried in a worn-out manila envelope lay. A yellow file with the ambitious red stamp throughout the top that examined eyes-only national security threat. It became without delay clear that whatever Hackman had uncovered was highly touchy and its contents could have national security implications, should it be that Hackman had stumbled upon something so risky that it warranted an FBI research, and extra importantly had he gotten too close to a fact that would price him his existence. Hackman's quiet, reclusive way of life, once seen as his breakout from the arena, did not seem so harmless anymore. Become the actor merely a victim of situation, or had he been targeted by using powerful forces for his expertise? The discovery of government records, maps, underground systems, and mysterious notes counseled that Hackman had been investigating something an awful lot bigger than himself. Had Hackman exposed a conspiracy that spanned many years, and if so became he silenced before he may want to reveal the reality, the timing of his death, simply days after. The FBI raid raised the even extra questions. Had the government discovered something that brought about his premature loss of life? Or had Hackman's own investigations put him at odds with individuals who wanted to keep those secrets buried? The arena became taken aback while news of Gene Hackman's dying broke simply days after the FBI raid. The details surrounding his passing were shrouded in mystery, with many speculating that it could have been a natural demise, but given the situation answers of the raid and the strange discoveries inside his property, conspiracy theories started to flow into may want to. It's that Hackman's death become no twist of fate. Could he have recognized an excessive amount of, and did a person or something force him to pay the charge? As the arena continues to grapple with the unanswered questions surrounding his loss of life, one aspect is obvious: Hackman's very last years have been far greater, complicated, and far darker than each person could have imagined, with such a lot of info. Nonetheless, left in the dark, the sector is left wondering what exactly did Gene Hackman uncover in his quiet retirement, and the way deep does the thriller move the FBI's raid on his property may also have unearthed some of the solutions, but and best Hackman knew the full quantity of the name of the game he have been wearing as his demise stays shrouded in thriller. The research keeps own thing is sure. Gene Hackman's legacy as a Hollywood legend will for all time be intertwined with the chilling secrets that have been hidden away inside the shadows of his Santa Fe mansion. Their reputable story claimed that Gene Hackman surpassed away due to herbal reasons, but the timing of his loss of life became impossible to disregard after the FBI's surprising raid in his New Mexico estate simply days before his death. Many started to impeach whether Hackman were pushed to Theria at 94, changed into the stress of the FBI's investigation, too much for the aging actor to undergo, or was something a long way more sinister at play. Had Hackman been silenced, making sure he ought to never display what he had exposed, the arena became left with extra questions than solutions, and the mysterious nature of his passing has simplest deepened the intrigue, for the reason that discovery of Hackman's hidden room federal cellars have remained eerily silent. Approximately what precisely became found interior. His mansion requests for public information have been denied, and the FBI's refusal to release any in addition information most effective fueled speculation why this secrecy surrounding in research that was sorely excessive. Profile Hackman had spent years in retirement, but his name became nonetheless widely recognized, his paintings respected. Sincerely, the FBI might be open approximately the situations of his death, but they have remained tight-lipped, even extra baffling. Our family members who once spoke freely about Hackman's existence have long gone, absolutely quiet people who knew him. Quality have refused to reply questions, and no public statements were issued about his passing. Hackman's kids, who had lengthy remained remote from the public, were curiously absent from all discussions in their father's loss of life. What should likely be so touchy that it had to be erased from public know-how. Theories abound, however, with the government refusing to comment. The thriller deepens with every passing day, with the FBI keeping their findings under wraps. The public has been left to speculate. Right here are a number of the main theories that try to give an explanation for what the FBI discovered in Hackman's property and why it is able to have led to his demise. One of the greater chilling theories shows that Hackman may have by chance stumbled upon proof of a covert authorities' undertaking whilst exploring the underground structures underneath his domestic. The blueprints and maps located in Hackman's personal documents hinted on the lifestyles of tunnels that prolonged a long way beyond his property. Become Hackman unknowingly sitting on a gold mine of national security secrets, or had he grow to be entangled in a labeled operation that he wasn't speculated to find? A few consider that Hackman's quiet interest about the underground spaces round his property led him to make investments, check out something a ways extra dangerous than he ever found out. Hackman found something he wasn't meant to. Hackman's cryptic notes written in a black pocketbook that became found amongst his assets provide every other lead. Those notes had been filled with coded messages and references to things that regarded far past the attain of a retired actor. Terms like "they may be continually listening" and "the tunnels connect." In addition, then a notion shows that Hackman might also have uncovered something in red, relatively large, something that involved now not simply his personal past, but perhaps Hollywood's darkest secrets turned into Hackman investigating categorized facts from his personal records, or become uncovering something extra sinister from the entertainment enterprise's hidden side, possibly the maximum unsettling. Theory entails the possibility of a deliberate cover-up. The fact that Hackman died so soon after the FBI's raid has led many to accept as true with that his passing became now not an accident. Should Hackman have been eliminated to ensure that the secrets he exposed could stay buried all the time? Was he silenced earlier than he could share his findings with the arena? The suddenness of his loss of life has many questioning. If it was a right-away result of the FBI's involvement, and if so, who turned into behind the choice to end his lifestyles? As more time passes, it turns into increasingly clear that the truth about what came about within the final days of Gene Hackman's existence remains locked away. The FBI continues to withhold key statistics, and the lack of transparency has best delivered gas to the fire. Public interest in the case has reached a fever pitch, with fans, reporters, and curious onlookers alike disturbing solutions, but the authorities' refusal to reveal what they observed on Hackman's belongings has ensured that the mystery remains unsolved. The FBI's moves endorse that Hackman's case become greater than simply the demise of a retired actor. There has been something a great deal deeper at play, something that transcended his Hollywood fame. Became Hackman involved in a web of national security secrets, or became he just a pawn in a bigger game? The more the authorities refuse to proportion, the more suspicious the case turns into. Perhaps one of the most unsettling components of Hackman's life was his isolation in his later years. Notwithstanding his fame and wealth, the actor lived in near overall solitude in Santa Fe, New Mexico. What made this even more shocking changed into that, not like many other growing older Hollywood legends, Hackman had no essential public help system. There were no circle of relatives gatherings, no public appearances, and no children at his aspect, the once larger-than-life actor who had commanded attention on the silver screen regarded to vanish into the shadows in his final years, and as he elderly into his 90s, Hackman's children were not often visible close to him. Why was this the case? Where had been his kids? Hackman had 3 kids, Christopher, Leslie, and Elizabeth, but they have been almost by no means seen with him in public, nor did they appear to go to him in his private New Mexico retreat. What may want to explain this unusual absence from the existence of a person who had once been one of Hollywood's most beloved stars? Gene Hackman's youngsters, in contrast to their father, chose to stay their lives far from the public eye. They prevented Hollywood's spotlight and maintained personal lives far away from the glitzy world that made their father famous. However, what is especially confusing is their close to total absence from Hackman's later existence, not like other celeb families in which children are regularly visible supporting their getting old parents at public events. Hackman's children have been truly non-existent. While Hackman's health deteriorated, his youngsters had been nowhere to be visible. While Hackman's dying changed into announced, there had been no heartfelt tributes, no statements, approximately the loss of a father, no public mourning. It became as if Hackman had already been forgotten by his own family long before his passing. There has been a lot speculation surrounding Hackman's dating with his youngsters, in particular after his divorce from Faymalt in 1986 sources advised that the divorce may also have created a permanent rift between Hackman and his kids, which changed into never repaired as the years went on Hackman's relationship with his. Kids apparently dwindled into oblivion. Was the gap between them an end result of Hackman's dedication to his Hollywood career, which came at the price of own family bonds, or changed into there something deeper at play, some unresolved problem that brought on the own family to interrupt aside friends and buddies of Hackman claimed that he turned into usually a priv-prat guy, someone who valued his independence, peculiarly else yet the diploma of isolation in his later years increases more questions than it answers changed into Hackman really content material being by myself, or was there something that made his kids live away? Hackman's later years were marked via a loss of connection to his beyond and circle of relatives he regarded to make no attempt to connect along with his kids while his fitness deteriorated for a man who had spent so much of his lifestyles inside the public. Why had he selected the sort of solitary course in his twilight years, perhaps after many years within the spotlight? Hackman definitely desired to be left on my own, unfastened from the public scrutiny. However, there may be every other opportunity that cannot be not noted. What if Hackman's children knew something, approximately him, that made them keep away from him? Absolutely ought to. There have been something in Hackman's beyond something tied to every secrets he was investigating that made them choose to stay away. Was there a deeper fact that separated Hackman from his family in methods that the public in no way knew? The reality remains hidden, and because the case of Gene Hackman's loss of life stays one of the most mysterious in Hollywood records, we may also by no means recognize the complete volume of the actor's reclusive final years, or the dark secrets he turned into, uncovering in his remaining days. Gene Hackman's loss of life marks the quit of an era in Hollywood, but it also leaves behind a haunting and unsettling reality. Even the maximum successful, the maximum celebrated, the most gifted people can find themselves alone in the long run for many years. Hackman gave the world unforgettable performances starring in some of the maximum iconic movies in cinema records. However, as his lifestyles came to a near, one could not help but wonder who became there for him while he wanted it the most, in spite of a profession that spanned decades and earned him multiple accolades. Hackman's later years had been eerily isolated, and while he wished a person to check in on him to offer a easy phrase of consolation or care, nobody turned into there. The silence from his youngsters after his demise simplest deepens the mystery. Had been they clearly absent or become there something darker keeping them away? Simplest they recognize the real answer, and possibly we by no means will the underground tunnels in Gene Hackman's mansion. For decades, Gene Hackman became referred to as a mythical actor, his presence on display commanding appreciation and admiration. However, under the muse of his sprawling New Mexico mansion, something far darker and extra mysterious lay hidden, something that even the maximum die-hard lovers could in no way have anticipated, whilst a sudden property inspection led to the invention of a series of underground tunnels local government had been known as. Into research what they determined below the highly priced property left them shaken to their center. Layers of dirt, eerie silence, and an unsettling electricity crammed the underground corridors as if the tunnels were waiting undisturbed for many years. The discovery raised a million questions. Who constructed these tunnels? What had been they using for, and why changed into this problematic subterranean network? Completely unknown even to the ones closest to Hackman as investigators ventured deeper into the darkness. The findings only delivered to the mystery. The primary factor officers noticed upon getting into the tunnels turned into the odd arrangement of items internal. Not like a easy garage area, this underground labyrinth seemed to have a motive, one that no person should pretty position their finger on lining. The partitions have been crates upon crates of unknown substances, a few marked with cryptic symbols, others seemingly untouched for many years as investigators pry open the primary. Few crates, what they determined inner, made their stomachs flip. Stacks of old newspapers and letters, many courting lower back over 50 years, have been packed away carefully in cardboard containers. A number of those documents contained ominous warnings. and others hinted at something being hidden away, secrets possibly that were never supposed to look the light of day. Together with the papers were mapped and blueprints that distinct routes under the mansion, suggesting that the tunnels connected now. Not just Hackman's belongings, however, areas a long way past it, however, possibly the most chilling discovery got here inside the form of private assets that didn't appear to belong to Hackman at all. Old suitcases, worn out, footwear, and faded Polaroid. Photos of unknown humans had been determined buried under the piles of files. Who had been those people, and why have been their objects hidden below Hackman's mansion as they proceeded? In addition, the researchers got here throughout something that made them shiver in their bones at the terminus of the tunnel, beyond a colossal iron door that might take hours to move, become a tiny, poorly lit room. Within the room were chairs organized in a flawless circle, with every one of them dealing with the center of the room. On the walls had been historical symbols carved into the stone, their feature. Wholly a mystery, the air in the room changed into heavy, as though the room itself became, preserving its breath, awaiting someone to permit it out its secrets. One of the investigators, on strolling into the room, become reportedly seen turning white upon viewing. Something written at the wall. Upon being asked about it later, they refused to talk about what it was. Handiest, including more to the enigma, turned into this a room used for go out a secret passageway to hold a person in location, or turned into it worse up. Domain used for black magic ceremonies or mystery gatherings. The primary theory investigators looked into was that the tunnel device were built as an go out a non-public pathway for one of a kind. Get right of entry to in case of emergencies that could now not be ordinary, specifically for public humans like Hackman, who might want to defend themselves from harm, need to whatever go incorrect. Celebrities, particularly the owners of spacious estates, include hidden exits as a part of their residences for protection and privacy. But because the investigation endured this hypothesis, began to interrupt down if this turned into just an escape device, then why had been there rooms with chairs in a circle as though a few type of conference region? Why had been there personal outcomes, gadgets belonging to folks that had no regarded relation to Hackman saved within the tunnels? A few speculated that the tunnels had been constructed as a hiding vicinity, probably used at some point of wartime or for secretive dealings. Others cautioned that the tunnels had a miles darker reason. Were they used for something greater, nefarious, including smuggling, illegal sports, or maybe underground conferences of a secretive nature? Gene Hackman turned into continually a person of privacy. In contrast to many other Hollywood celebrities, he desired a quiet existence away from the highlight. After retiring from acting, he settled in Santa Fe, New Mexico, hoping to get away the demands of fame and live peacefully. However, this discovery has led many to question just how lots Hackman actually knew about his own home. Did Hackman come upon the tunnels for the duration of his time residing on the estate? Became he aware of their lifestyles and surely chose to keep it a secret, or even extra disturbing? Changed into he using the tunnels for functions that the arena became in no way meant to realize. Approximately reviews from former body of workers contributors advised that Hackman not often allowed people near certain regions of the house. A few even declare that ordinary noises have been occasionally heard from underneath the mansion, noises that had been often disregarded as nothing more than the creaks and groans of an vintage house. But now the one-sequel whispers are starting to sound extra like warnings that need to have been taken critically. Possibly the most chilling element of this complete mystery is absolutely the silence from regulation enforcement. After the preliminary discovery, the FBI became referred to as into research in addition, but after a brief search of the tunnels, they all of a sudden ceased all public updates. No authentic rationalization has been given for what they observed inside or why the case became so quick. Shut down. This has caused wild hypothesis become there. Something within the tunnel so annoying that authorities are actively trying to cowl it up. Did they locate classified files, secret mystery, statistics, or proof of a conspiracy that ought to shake the principles of history itself, or turned into it something extra supernatural? Something that defies logical rationalization. The authorities' refusal to comment on the findings has fueled public mistrust. The more they stay silent, the greater human beings consider that what lies beneath Hackman's property is far extra than just and vintage tunnel device some accept as true, with that the proper nature of what changed into discovered is so dangerous that it need to be kept hidden from the public in any respect. Prices as the arena continues to take a position, numerous key theories have emerged. Some believe that Hackman exposed something so effective in his later years that he became a goal for people who wanted to keep it. Mystery changed into a deeper connection between Hackman and the tunnels, should they were part of a community tied to something far extra than just one man's property. Others suppose that Hackman became absolutely an harmless bystander who stumbled into something much darker than he ever found. Out the questions continue to be unanswered. What had been the tunnels truliest for? Did Gene Hackman know something that the world became in no way supposed to locate out? The silence from authorities most effective provides to the mystery Hackmans. Legacy as a Hollywood icon will forever be intertwined with the chilling secrets that lie below his Santa Fe mansion on February 26th. What began as a routine maintenance, take a look at, became one of the most confusing crime scenes in recent reminiscence. Preservation employees arrived at G. Hackman's Santa Fe mansion, expecting regular upkeep, most effective to be met with an eerie silence, and Anne unlocked the front door. In the scene painted a grim photo. John Hackman, aged 95, became observed in a small room close to the lower back door with his cane and sunshades left close by, whilst his wife, Betsy Arakawa, elderly 65, was discovered in the bathroom. Her frame lay close to a countertop in which pills were strewn about and an open prescription bottle was left as if in haste. A space heater tipped over at the floor close to the frame brought to the jumble of perplexing evidence. Investigators stated that while authorities first of all suspected carbon monoxide poisoning, a serious and common hazard, the gas lines have been inspected and found to be perfectly secure. Furthermore, it appeared that the couple's remains had skilled a stage of dehydration and drying out, suggesting that loss of life had come some time before. Discovery adding to the thriller became the presence of 3 pets were seen wandering outside in a careworn state, and one canine located deceased in a crate hinted at an extended length. Without proper care or a unexpected interruption in feeding routines, these scattered medicinal drugs, the unsettling open door, and the unaccounted for pedal blended to raise extra questions than solutions. Who or what changed into responsible for leaving such disarray? The case of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa has come to be a magnet for theories, with investigators and fans alike squinting on the proof for a hint of a larger truth. At first glance, herbal causes might appear attainable for a person like Hackman, aged 95, but the truth that his wife, who was handiest 65, changed into determined in this kind of precarious state complicates any clean end. One main idea centers on the scattered medications located near Betsy's frame, the open prescription bottle, and the mess of drugs at the countertop factor to the opportunity of an overdose or the quickly moves of a person experiencing an intense health disaster. A few believe that perhaps a sudden episode, whether or not a coronary heart assault, stroke, or intense hypersensitive reaction, could have spurred a determined search for relief through self-medication. Instead, there may be the concept that one may want to have taken pills intentionally, a method to an end leading the other into a state of shock and depression that can have pushed them both toward a sad end. Any other full-size hypothesis stems from in-advance checks that hinted at carbon monoxide poisoning, a silent killer that can also depart few marks of trauma, but after thorough inspection, as via by fuel businesses and fire officials. This theory misplaced floor as no leak or related hazard was found. Nevertheless, remnant of poisonous fumes cannot be entirely ruled out till post-mortem, and toxicology reviews deliver their verdict, including a further layer of thriller is the invention of a month-to-month planner and 2 green mobile phones. These gadgets advocate that the couple could have been maintaining track of appointments, events, or even mystery plans, hinting that existence in their secluded home would possibly have had elements unknown to even their closest friends. And there you have it, the surprising truth behind Gene Hackman's death. Mystery, what do you think became this? The closure you expected? Drop your thoughts within the remarks, and don't overlook to subscribe for extra.